With its strategic location, growing manufacturing base, large domestic market, and abundant natural resources, Indonesia can become a global supply chain hub. Let us see the challenges Indonesia may face to become a part of the global supply chain hub. Here they are.
As an archipelagic nation, Indonesia faces greater challenges than other ASEAN countries in increasing the efficiency of goods distribution. This condition has caused Indonesia's incremental capital output ratio, or ICOR, the key indicator of the efficiency of investment, to remain high at 6.33, far below Singapore, which is highly efficient at 3.4, and Vietnam at 4.6. Consequently, Indonesia's logistic costs remain high, although they have significantly dropped from around 23% in 2015 or around 14% in 2023. Iqbal Sofwan Sohwan, Director General of Domestic Trade at the Ministry of Trade, said that the government is targeting a reduction in the national logistic cost ratio to 12% of gross domestic product, or GDP, by 2029, with a long-term goal of 8%. To achieve efficiency target, the Ministry of Trade has implemented several strategic measures, including the issuance of Minister of Trade Regulation No. 92 of 2020 concerning inter-island trade. The regulation supports a more efficient logistic distribution system through digitalization, enabling businesses to input data only once for the entire shipping progress. In addition, the government has also a series of measures to improve efficiency in the distribution of goods within the country and to overseas market. The government has, for example, opened economic zones such as special economic zones to streamline distribution, increase competitiveness, and stimulate regional economic growth. At least 25 special economic zones have been opened in the country, and more are under preparation. The government is currently preparing a presidential regulation on national logistics as an effort to improve the supply chain system and increase the efficiency of goods distribution throughout Indonesia. Meanwhile, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs Erlangga Hartarto said the National Logistics Strengthening Strategy has been designed comprehensively, encompassing 3 strategies: developing infrastructure connectivity, digitalization and service integration, and increasing the capacity of human resources and logistic service providers. Despite such weaknesses, Indonesia has become a major foreign direct investment destination in Southeast Asia due to its large domestic market, strategic location, abundant natural resources, and stable economic and political climate. Indonesia recorded 42.9 trillion rupiah, approximately $2.6 billion at the current rate, in total investment during the first half of 2025. Of the total, domestic investment reached 510.3 trillion rupiah, outpacing foreign investment, or PMA, which stood at 432.6 trillion rupiah. The combined figure represents a 13.6% increase compared to the same period last year. Foreign investment growth is expected to increase further in coming years following the signing of international trade agreements such as CEPA with various countries. To date, Indonesia has signed trade agreements with 20 countries with a further increase of foreign investment. Indonesia will become a production hub for many foreign companies, turning Indonesia into a key part for the global supply chain hub.
Blessed with abundant natural resources, a strategic location, and a large workforce, Indonesia has everything it needs to become a global supply chain hub. Here with us is John Lowe, Managing Partner, Southeast Asia at Roland Berger Consulting Company, and he will discuss the prospects of Indonesia in becoming a key part of the global supply chain hub. Hello, John. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us from headquarters in KL. And first question, realize that Roland Berger has also released a very important report, especially on this shift right now, global supply chain shift towards Southeast Asia. As Indonesia, one of the largest economies in ASEAN, as well as a major destination of foreign investments in the region, how do you see the importance of Indonesia, especially in the global supply chain?
Well, Indonesia is becoming more important simply because of what it naturally offers. So first, it's a country with big population. It attracts global companies looking for scale. Second, Indonesia sits right between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, so a lot of trade routes pass by its doorstep. Third, Indonesia has minerals such as nickel, copper, bauxite, which are increasingly essential for industries like electric vehicles and electronics. So these strengths give Indonesia a bigger voice and is slowly moving from being just a supplier of resources to becoming a country that shapes global supply chains.
And from the report as well, what are some of the potentials that you see, especially for Indonesia in the supply chain hub, particularly which sectors can Indonesia have the comparative advantage compared to other countries?
There's definitely potential. So Indonesia is already taking steps to do more manufacturing at home instead of just exporting raw materials. The clearest example is in the electric vehicle battery industry. Because Indonesia has so much nickel, global players are investing in smelters, battery plants here in Indonesia, right? So beyond that, Indonesia has room to grow in electronics, consumer goods, petrochemicals, and food processing also. These are industries where Indonesia already has either the market, the resources, the workforce, and the know-how to support bigger production.
And as you said before, that there are many sectors in which Indonesia would have the comparative advantage. However, if we can take a bird's eye view and see currently, what do you believe is the position of Indonesia in comparison to other countries? How do we fare compared to the other places in which global supply chain hubs are very interested in investing?
Well, despite the challenges, it's definitely improving, but not as efficient or as fast as the top performers in the region, for example, Singapore and Malaysia, and also Vietnam. They have spent years building strong export systems, but Indonesia is definitely catching up. Well, we're seeing better port facilities, smoother digital systems, more industrial zones that help manufacturers operate more easily. But the country's geography does make things more complicated, right? But the progress is definitely real. And Indonesia is heading in the right direction, even if it's not quite there yet.
With that, it means that there are still many challenges for us to overcome as well, John. What do you think, especially in terms of Indonesia's logistics? Our logistics cost is one of the highest in the region. From your perspective, John, what is a single biggest bottleneck that we need to fix in order to become more competitive and also to reduce our costs?
Well, I see there's three main challenges. The first is the geography. So managing goods across thousands of islands will always be more complicated than moving goods across a single landmass. Then there's the issue of uneven infrastructure. Some areas have great ports, good roads, while others are still facing delays. Regulations can vary also from one region to another, so which makes planning harder for businesses. And last, on top of that, a lot of logistics market is made up of small operators, so very fragmented, and so coordination isn't always the smoothest. So Indonesia needs more integrated systems, better tracking, and all this, will really help.
And in order for us to give a solution to these problems, how do you see the Indonesian government's efforts in reducing the very high logistics costs so far? Do you believe, John, that the government's measures are effective enough?
Well, the government has definitely made good progress. So ports are expanding, toll roads are being built to provide better access. Digital systems are also making customs more predictable. These are important steps, but the business do feel the difference. The impact is still uneven though. The improvement are most visible in Java, while many other regions still face higher costs and slower processes. So the direction is right, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to bring the whole country up to the same level.
And in particular, John, do you see the government's initiatives to open special economic zones will also help some of the logistics bottlenecks?
Well, they definitely will help, especially for companies located inside those zones. So special economic zones usually offer better infrastructure, quicker approvals, more reliable services, and so businesses there will see fewer delays. But SEZs can't solve everything, right? So goods still have to leave the zones and travel through the national network, and that's where many of the bottlenecks still happen. So SEZs are a useful tool, a very important one, but Indonesia still needs broader improvements to really fix the logistics challenges nationwide.
And in order for us, to attract one of the most important initiatives or very attractive initiatives, China Plus One strategy, what are two of the most important reforms that we must work on right now, John?
Okay, so I think Indonesia should focus on a few clear priorities. So first, keep strengthening the basics. So ports, roads, power supply, digital systems. So manufacturers want reliability above everything else, right? Second, probably make it easier for companies to operate by keeping regulations simple and consistent across the regions. So this will reduce uncertainty and speed things up. Third, invest in people. So strong technical skills, vocational training will help make Indonesia much more competitive. And finally, double down on sectors where Indonesia already has great natural advantages like EV batteries, food processing, petrochemicals, and electronics, and build industrial ecosystems around them so that the investors are also staying rooted in Indonesia. So I think if Indonesia sticks to these priorities, it has every chance to become one of Asia's leading manufacturing hubs.
And in addition to that, China has been one of the biggest players, especially in the global supply chain. Right now, what should Indonesia do in order for us not to become competition to China or become competitive, but for us to be able to be complementary to China in this industry?
Yeah, I think similarly to what I said earlier, right? Look at China as a partner, not only China, but also the rest of the ASEAN countries to basically, build on its strengths and leverage each other's strengths and not compete, right? So discuss, right, have a government-to-government discussion, and also look at what it has to offer rather than trying to compete in especially in the global supply chain situation today.
And last question, what is the biggest advice that you want to give, especially in our sectors that we need to work on? You talked before about the battery EV industry, which we're also focusing on. Any other that you believe will truly be a game changer, especially for Indonesia?
I think, my advice would be to stay focused on the industries. Don't be a jack of all trades because you'll never specialize. And in order for us to specialize, you really need to build the ecosystem. So have a very strong, comprehensive value chain across the industries that I mentioned earlier, and build on that, right? Make sure that we have a strong supplier base, make sure that logistics are improved, making sure that you invest in digital and also people. And once you strengthen the ecosystem, Indonesia will be hard to beat.
And on that note, thank you so much, John Low, Managing Partner, Southeast Asia at Roland Berger. We truly appreciate your time and your insights for today. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you.